quote, I spoke to Senator Schumer, who I believe did everything he could to get Ms. McFerrin confirmed to the NLRB. And so it's like, which is it, bro? What do you mean? Did he do everything he possibly could have, or did he fumble the ball? Like, what's going on here?
Sean O'Brien recently went on Hasan's stream, Hasan Piker's stream, and he talked some. He was talking about a podcast that he's starting, the Better Bad Ideas podcast on YouTube with Sean O'Brien. Starting a podcast as the president of the International Union does not strike me as a good use of time. But, I mean, look, I do a podcast, so, maybe there's a certain amount of value to it. Sean O'Brien is the face of the Teamsters, so maybe there's a certain value that you get Sean O'Brien doing the podcast that you don't get from somebody else doing the podcast. I'm open to that, but skeptical. But let's listen to, and here I'm going to, this is where really the kind of directionality of his criticisms was frustrating to me, or the directionality of his comments was frustrating to me. Here we're talking about the National Labor Relations Board and the vote that failed to reconfirm Biden's appointee, Lauren McFerrin, a pro-worker appointee to the National Labor Relations Board. That vote failed. They're talking about that, and then they're going to talk some about Josh Hawley. Let's listen to this clip.
That happened where it was reported that the Democratic Party kind of dropped the ball. I'm just going right into it, by the way, where there was an opportunity for the Democratic Party to continue controlling the NLRB for the next 2 years, and unfortunately that fell apart. And I wanted to hear what your opinion was on that.
Yeah, there was a reappointment effort to keep one of the Democratic appointees on there, and it couldn't get done, and it's unfortunate. But the reality of it is there was a key opportunity to, and look, I think it's important to note the NLRB needs to be revamped. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And in my world, the Teamsters world, we've been avoiding the NLRB as much as possible. I mean, I think if you pay attention to what's been going on for the last 2.5 years, although we have gotten some good decisions, we try and just put the pressure on employers to either recognize us voluntarily, or in some cases, like in DHL and other areas like Cisco or Republic Waste, we strike for recognition. We've done that at Amazon. We have marches on the bosses at the DSPs. So whoever is in that NLRB, I think regardless of who's there, we've got to revamp them. I think, being at the table, having the conversations, being part of the process is important, and we're hopefully optimistic we can do that. I mean, look, we can't keep focusing on missed opportunities. We just got to play with the cards we're dealt and figure it out, and I think that's what we're prepared to do.
There's a Ro Khanna tweet from this issue specifically from January 7th, where he says, "We then failed to get the word to Vice President Harris quickly enough to come and deliver the tie-breaking vote. In the 90 minutes that transpired, Senator Manchin returned first, swinging the vote in the other direction and ceding the NLRB to Republican control 2 years earlier than necessary. These procedural blunders have massive implications for the American people, who deserve better from their elected officials. American workers deserve an explanation." Now, regardless,
I'll pause it right there and just read this whole thread from Ro Khanna, because he basically describes, like Hasan said, a procedural blunder that may be the reason that we don't have a pro-worker majority on the NLRB. So he said, started off, due to an unforced error by Democrats, we lost the National Labor Relations Board 2 years earlier than we should have. This is a huge setback for the hundreds of thousands of workers across the country organizing for a better contract. Let me explain. The NLRB is America's leading labor law enforcement agency. In the last 3 years, union petitions have doubled because we have a strong NLRB that supports workers who choose to form unions and ensure that corporations allow free and fair union elections and protects union workers if big business retaliates against them. The term of our previous NLRB chair, Lauren McFerrin, just expired on December 15th. She was eligible for reconfirmation alongside a Republican who'd be paired with her. This would have secured a 3-2 Democratic majority on the NLRB for the first 2 years of Trump's second term. Bernie Sanders did the right thing. He cleared her nomination on August 6th, but the Dems fumbled it. On the morning of the 11th, Senate Democrats had a chance to move McFerrin's nomination vote through, which would have led to a secondary vote to confirm. Senator Vance, Roberts, and Manchin were absent that morning, but we delayed the vote for what I'm hearing described as no reason until both Vance and Manchin returned, deadlocking the vote at 49-49. We then failed to get word to Vice President Harris quickly enough to come and deliver the tie-breaking vote. In the 90 minutes that transpired, Senator Manchin returned first, swinging the vote in the other direction and ceding the NLRB to MAGA control 2 years earlier than necessary. These procedural blunders have massive implications for the American people who deserve better from their elected officials. American workers deserve an explanation. It will hurt young folks organizing at Starbucks and the workers organizing at Amazon. It's inexcusable and inexplicable that we did not prioritize confirming the NLRB appointees like we do federal judges and have seated the board 2 years before we needed to. Now, also, he tweeted shortly after that he just got off the phone with Senator Schumer, and he says, quote, "I spoke to Senator Schumer, who I believe did everything he could to get Miss McFerrin confirmed to the NLRB." And so it's like, which is it, Ro? What do you mean? Did he do everything he possibly could have, or did he fumble the ball? Like, what's going on here? I'm not super clear on that, frankly.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
But for sure, it seems like there could have been a higher priority placed on reconfirming McFerrin, and that Roe is right that it is going to be a huge problem for workers organizing in the Trump era, that it is going to be a Trump NLRB. Probably. And Sean O'Brien is going to agree to that, and then listen to what he says after that. Let's continue listening.
On the NLRB overall, it seems like Kamala Harris still had the opportunity to deliver a tie-breaking vote and chose or was not there to cast that vote. What is that? Does that track with at least your immediate involvement with Kamala Harris, because you've been in rooms where you directly talk to Kamala Harris as well for labor specific issues?
I mean, look, if you miss the bell or you don't show up for work in the real world, you're in trouble, right? But there's no consequences for her. She should have been there. She should have done the right thing. And this is what the problem has been all along. Ro Khanna has been a great advocate for working people. I spent a lot of time with him, and look, he'd have the inside track on what actually happened. But, if you're expected to be there and you can actually make an influential decision, then be there regardless of whether you won the election or not. Now, we can speculate, or I could speculate, maybe she didn't care because she lost. I don't know whether that's true or not, but, based upon my experiences and based upon the election results, maybe she just doesn't care anymore. And, elections have consequences, and this is clearly a consequence of an election.
Yeah. So here's the other side of the story. So in terms of Josh Hawley, you've talked about him with we even had a conversation about Josh Hawley where you believe that he is you had a conversation with him. You believe that he's committed to the statements that we've heard from him very publicly about supporting labor unions. And I guess the question I have is, or at least the fears I have, and this is echoed by my friend Alex Press as well, that with the Trump-backed NLRB appointments or new NLRB judges, do you feel like there is something to fear with respect to the judges potentially opposing the Teamsters argument that Amazon is a joint employer of its drivers? Specifically the ones that we're talking about with the strikes that are happening or were happening all around the country?
I mean, the fear of the unknown obviously is not a comfortable position to be in. We're hopefully optimistic by having conversations with people like Josh Hawley, working bipartisan across the aisle, that we can convince and also support previous rulings that have determined they are, in fact, a joint employer. So time will tell, but I will say this about Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, since the day we've been working with him, hasn't wavered on anything that we've asked him to do. He showed up at picket lines in Missouri. And look, there's a lot of Democrats that haven't done the right thing either.
I guess I'm curious, judging from what Sean O'Brien was saying about Harris and Hawley, what would your guess be as to how Josh Hawley voted in the NLRB Lauren McFerrin nomination confirmation vote? Well, what my answer would be to that is I would think, my guess would be that Josh Hawley voted in favor of reconfirming Lauren McFerrin, because he said Josh Hawley has always done everything that we've asked him to. We love him. He's a great representative, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm really frustrated with Kamala Harris. She didn't do her job. She didn't answer the bell quick enough, blah, 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 blah. Josh Hawley voted against Lauren McFerrin. Like, not only did he not get there, it wasn't that he didn't get there quick enough to vote in favor of her. He got there. He was one of the people there originally, and he voted against her. He voted against her. And so it's like, what am I to make of that vis-a-vis Josh Hawley? What am I to make of that? Because now he's got this big, pro-labor framework for the 119th Congress, which is not as expansive as the PRO Act, but is all genuinely good stuff, right? Like, it's not as if, at least so far in the framework, we're going to have to see the details, but in the stuff that he's pushing around, it is all good stuff. It's not as if like, oh, there's some good stuff here mixed with some bad. It's all good. It's all good. And it would be great if it passed. That's why I don't think it will. And why I think that now Josh Hawley has another news cycle about how, I've done this great thing to support union people. And it's all performative so far, right? He materially, by voting against Lauren McFerrin, if he had changed his vote, she would have been confirmed, right? If Josh Hawley had changed his vote, we would have a pro-worker majority on the NLRB right now and for the next 2 years. What am I to make of that, right? Because we're talking about all of this stuff that he's done that's pro-labor, and all of it is performative. All of it is talking about like, oh, he walked a picket line. Like, that's great, but it's performative. He's done this big pro-labor framework. It's great, but it's performative. We'll see. And if he could have brought 2 or 3 or 4 GOP senators along for a plan like this, that probably would have passed. Why wasn't he working with Chuck Schumer to make something like that happen? That's why I am so skeptical of the pro-labor turn from people like J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley, because so far it has not materialized into anything. Right? At least with Joe Biden and the Democrats, we have something. We do at least have the pensions being saved. We at least had a pro-worker majority on the NLRB. Like, those are real things. And so far, we have not seen any real things from Josh Hawley and these so-called pro-labor Republicans. So there you go. Very concerning. And we'll continue to follow the stories as they develop. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.